Hello world, I know I haven't made a video in a while, but I've got baby sugar gliders recently and I really haven't made any time in my life for anything but them. But they're sleeping right now, so I know it's a bit old hat to talk about the Military Commissions Act of '06, seeing as how it was passed in October. But I didn't read it when the legislation was passed or just before. I read some blog entries, I went to the UK Guardian, I went to Olbermann, I did my usual kind of fact check and whatever else, but I didn't read the actual bill. And I think it's very important that I go over some of the finer points for those of you who have not read it. Now, I have put a link to the bill over here for YouTube, over there for LiveLeak, and that also includes a link to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which the bill references on several occasions. Early on in the bill, it says that three parts of the Uniform Code of Military Justice will no longer apply. The first is the right to a speedy trial. Now, if you're an American citizen, you know we're all guaranteed the right to a speedy trial. But felons will sit in prison for months and often years, even as long as decades before going to court or finishing their trial, being passed sentence, and beginning to serve their time. I've only had one nasty run-in with the law. I was 17 and really drunk. My friend was really drunk, too drunk to drive me home, so she said, well, I'll walk with you. And so we went walking and bumped into a state trooper, and the rest, as they say, is history. It took me about 3 months to go to court for that, and that's an extremely minor offense. So imagine what they can do to the people in Guantanamo when an American felon guaranteed the right to a speedy trial can sit in prison for a decade. They can easily say, well, let's see, we've got you penciled in for November 18th, 2097. You do anything that day, buddy? Good. See you then. Now, the second right that they take away is the Fifth Amendment right, the right to non-self-incrimination, therefore meaning that under the penalty of perjury, they may, in court, be asked if they have committed any criminal actions. Now, I know it's kind of a nominal protection when considering the torture that has also been legalized under this bill, and considering the fact that most of them are kind of detained with little or no evidence. But, still, it's a very fundamental and very American concept that we're stripping away from these people for no apparent reason. Now, the third is the one that really chills my bones. And what the bill says, something along the lines of section such and such of the Uniform Code of Military Justice regarding pretrial investigation. If you look up that section in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, it says that a competent and impartial investigation pre-trial must take place. In other words, they can try someone for crimes with no evidence. Now, another part that really gets to me is no civilian attorneys can be used to defend the accused in these military commissions trials. No civilian attorneys that are not authorized to receive classified information. So, you have a person who is a terrorist being held and tried under the Military Commissions Act, and he says, well, I have a really great lawyer. My uncle immigrated to America. I would really like to have my uncle be my lawyer. And they say, no, I'm sorry, your uncle is not authorized to receive classified information, but we do have a lawyer here. Meet Counselor Rumsfeld. He'll be your man. Good man. Now, I know that people may not see this as cause for concern. The fact that we may detain people without any evidence, hold them for any amount of time we deem necessary before the trial, which means essentially forever. And we can force them to incriminate themselves whether or not there is evidence. So let's just pretend for a second that I decide to move to California. Now, I know, I've come into some money. It fell from the heavens. I decide to go move to California and be a farmer. And when I'm there, I meet up with these two guys, Enrique and Chaz. Enrique is a Mexican and Chaz is an English fellow. They're both immigrants. And we move to our little farm and we buy tons of fertilizer because we're going to grow sunflowers and make biodiesel, and we're going to have a grand old time. So we get tons of fertilizer and 3 12-gauge shotguns, because a shotgun really is a utilitarian aspect on a farm. And then somehow something goes wrong with our agricultural license, and we don't get it on time, and we can't get our sunflower fields planted legally. And then there's a knock at the door, and it's the immigration department. Chaz doesn't have a green card. So all of a sudden they come around, they look around, and we have a garage full of fertilizer and shotguns. Boy, ever do we look like terrorists, I'm sure. And under this act, they could take us all away, take us to Guantanamo, torture us, force us to sign our own confessions, and then, also under the act, it says that any humane penalty, including the penalty of death, may be administered to people tried under this act, including the penalty of death. The men in Guantanamo, most of them came from the Afghan front lines. What happened was the United States hired another group called the Northern Alliance, who are kind of anti-Taliban, to work with us. And we told them that we would pay them X number of dollars per terrorist they brought us, no questions asked. Now, we don't know who we have in Guantanamo. That's one of the biggest problems. They brought us all these people and said, yeah, these are all terrorists. We found them in this terrorist base. And they could be. And I'm sure some of the men in Guantanamo are. The problem is that there's no evidence really to indict probably any of them. So here we have all of these people in this prison that we have tortured and held for 5 years. We have to get rid of them. And now it is very perfectly legal to try and to execute every last one of them. Close the facility and pretend it never happened.